Welcome back to another episode of the Behind the Counter Show. We're here today at HB Pharmacy. My name is Vince, and today we have Mike, who is our rep from Ortho Molecular, and Mike has been working with us for, I've known you at least for 2-3 years now, probably
yeah,
at least?
probably 2.5, 3 years
Something
now.
like that, yeah.
Yep.
And he's been our Ortho Molecular rep since then. You all probably know, especially if you shop online with us or come in the pharmacy, Ortho Molecular is one of the big brands that we like to promote because we really believe in the quality behind it. And we figured, hey, you know what? Quality is important. There's a lot of information about quality, or disinformation, I should say, about quality in the supplement space in particular. Who better to talk about it than a guy from the company itself? So, Mike, thanks for being here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be talking about quality control, my company, what we do, why we do it.
So I guess let's just start right there. So why would quality be important in the dietary supplement industry?
Absolutely, because you need to know what you're taking. So about 25% of supplements within the retail space actually don't contain what they say they contain on the label.
Wow.
25%, that's 1 out of 4. So think about GNCs, Walgreens, CVS, all of those.
Yeah.
1 out of 4 of those supplements don't contain what they say they contain on the label.
That's crazy.
Which is nuts, right? So we always say the most expensive supplement is the one that doesn't work.
Sure.
Right? So from an efficacy perspective, if 1 out of 4 say, it says, we're getting this and you're really getting that, there's going to be no efficacy at all.
Totally.
So that's why quality control is of utmost importance.
So what does that look like internally for Ortho Molecular then? Ortho Molecular, and this is not just, we had heard you were a reputable brand when we started carrying Ortho Molecular, but in all the times we've been selling it, people I talk to from around the country who hear the name and they're like, oh, no, that's good stuff. You know what I mean? So what does that mean to you, and what does that look like for you at Ortho Molecular?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we only work with licensed medical practitioners, right? So right off the bat, you know it's going to be quality because it has to work.
Sure.
We have no other choice, right? Because ultimately we won't be a company if the products don't work, since we're only marketing to licensed medical practitioners, such as pharmacists, but also MDs, DOs, that type of thing.
Right.
So that's probably the thing that right off the bat jumps out. But I think the other thing is just manufacturing excellence.
Okay.
Right? So there's a lot of companies out there, especially with COVID now, and everything that's been going on. A lot of fly-by-night companies, they spring up, they pop up on your Instagram and your Facebook, and they're trying to sling whatever it is. From a quality perspective, they're not doing a dang thing.
So what does that mean then? Like, are you talking about from, obviously a production perspective too, but I'm assuming you mean from an ingredients and a sourcing perspective as well, right?
Absolutely. You got to source the best raw materials you can possibly source. So we have a policy called China Last. As of right now, we're not sourcing any of our raw materials from China. It could change potentially, but we don't anticipate anything like that just because of the raw material shortages secondary to COVID, because everybody's buying supplements and things like that. But China Last policy, but we had the opportunity to tour our manufacturing facility about 2 weeks ago, which is in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and we just put in a 200,000 square foot addition. And the thing that jumped out at me most was the quality control. We have 40 individuals just in our quality control department.
Wow.
So there's about 200 individuals that work there, 40 in quality control.
Wow.
1 out of 4.
So going off that too, if I were to pull up a bottle of some, let's say, immune sports supplement, and then a bottle of, Viracid or something like that, that's Ortho Molecular, you're telling me that the vitamin C, let's say, for example, is coming from 2 different places, and that makes an impact on how well it's actually received in your body and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So you want to know something funny? Most vitamin C in the retail space, sourced from China. They source it for about 25 cents a kilo.
Wow.
25 cents. We source from a small company in Germany, and we pay $25 a kilo for it.
Wow.
If there was no difference, we wouldn't be doing that. There is a tremendous difference in terms of what's in it. A lot of fillers coming out of China, that type of thing, and we just want to avoid that at all costs.
That makes sense.
Yep. So that's what makes the product work.
Yeah. It's tough, right? Like, you don't want to always say you get what you pay for, because there's some people, scheming, especially like you alluded to earlier with COVID and things like that. But you 100% are getting what you're paying for when it comes to Ortho Molecular then.
That's exactly it. So we always say the most expensive supplement is the one that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And in the supplement space, you get what you pay for.
Sure.
Hands down.
Sure. You know what's a story that I always found interesting too? This was maybe like a year and a half, 2 years ago. Something like that. And you guys had a recall on Inflammacor.
We did.
So Inflammacor is essentially like a gut inflammation powder. that you would take to help reduce inflammation in your gut. Broadly, that's what it does.
Yep.
And they recalled it, which it's heavy. Like, to ship that and to get it back, it's extremely, extremely expensive.
Yeah.
And you guys recalled it because it was supposed to have organic flaxseed in it, and it came out with inorganic flaxseed. So they recalled it specifically because, and to me, that was such a telling story that you guys practice what you preach,
Yeah.
and really believe what you're saying, that you would go through all of that expense for something that would, like, you know, one tiny ingredient that was just not organic when it was supposed to be.
Exactly, and there was an uproar in our company about it because the salespeople obviously had sold it and then it got taken out of our numbers and that type of thing. But that's what we stand for. We're all about efficacy. We're all about saying what, you know, we're 100% honest in everything we do.
Yeah.
Right? And that is a perfect example of it. We were just like, hey, guess what? This is not testing as organic. What's going on? So the decision was made from the top that, hey, you know what? All of that inflammatory in that lot needs to be taken out.
Yeah.
And you know what we did after that? We called our vendor up and we asked them, hey, is this organic? And you know what our vendor said? Absolutely 100%.
Really?
And we fired him on the spot.
Wow.
Done. Right? So there was a little bit of a lag time between when we recalled it to when we got it back because we had to find another vendor that was going to give us quality raw material.
Of course, that makes sense.
Yep.
Wow, that is an incredibly telling story about your values and what you believe as a company.
Yeah, like when we were founded back in 1989, so we're going on 31 years. My shirt says 30, but it's an old shirt. But we're going on 31 years, and we were founded out of a small health food store in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, by a gentleman by the name of Gary Powers.
Gotcha.
And Gary Powers just had this dream of kind of transforming the practice of medicine and supplements. And I think like the supplement industry in general gives, you know, kind of has a bad name.
Yeah, I agree.
Just because there's so much, you know, kind of crap
it's
out
just
there.
like an immediately like sketchy vibe.
Exactly. So he wanted to change that paradigm.
Yeah.
And that was his mission, that was his goal, and that's what we're striving to do every single day.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, we've definitely appreciated working with you and all the knowledge you've shared, but also being able to have products like these here that actually work and actually help people.
Yeah.
You know, it's great because there is, and especially being in the healthcare space, that's why we did it too, because it's the people you're supposed to trust are your pharmacists, are your doctors, or that kind of stuff. So if we're not giving things out that we don't trust, or people, like, how can we possibly give them to our patients then, you know?
That's exactly it, and that's what, you know, Gary Powers said from the get-go.
Yeah.
Right. And the cool thing about it, we're privately held.
Yeah.
So we control every aspect of the manufacturing process beginning to end.
Wow.
Right. The whole thing, we control it, which means we can fire our vendors if they're not giving us quality raw materials. There's actually something we do called a challenge sample.
Okay.
And a challenge sample, basically what we'll do is we'll call up the vendor and we'll say, hey, we found X contaminant in this sample that we took. Can you verify?
Yeah.
Right? And we'll send that sample out with a COA saying the exact same thing, right? And if they say, oh yeah, you're absolutely right, it's this contaminant, we will fire them on the spot. You know why?
Why?
Because we lied about the contaminant.
Wow.
So that's called a challenge sample.
So you're making something up to test to see how quality or the reputation and blah, blah, blah on the actual vendor themselves.
Of the actual vendor we're getting our raw materials from.
Right. Wow. You guys don't mess around.
We're not messing around. Yeah. So that's happened multiple times in the past where a challenge sample was sent out and they agreed with us and we fired them on the spot and they didn't know why.
Wow.
And we're like, well, guess what? It's not this contaminant, it's this contaminant, and you didn't find it. Which means you're not vetting vetting your raw materials accurately. How can we trust you?
Agreed.
Because at the end of the day, all relationships are built on trust.
Sure.
And if we can't trust a vendor, they're out.
Yeah. No, makes sense.
They're out.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about Ortho Molecular and supplements in general or quality in general before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think one of the things that are very popular right now are like probiotics.
Okay.
Right? And there's a lot of misinformation about probiotics. There's a lot of marketing hype over probiotics and things like that. But one of the things you always really want to look for with probiotics is expiration dates. You know why?
Because they may be bad before those expiration dates?
Exactly, right? So strains of probiotic bacteria, they're going to degrade over time. And how a lot of companies, even within the professional or the pharmaceutical space, they tend to want to get around that because they want to look to cut costs wherever they can. So what you're going to see a lot of the time is a manufacturing date on probiotics.
Okay.
And a manufacturing date is like, hey, it's 50 billion CFU when it was made. Right? So technically that product never expires.
Okay.
Right? But as we know, probiotics degrade over time. So the reason they put a manufacturing date on that instead of an expiration date is they didn't want to put the extra effort and the money and the time into doing the stability testing on each one of those strains.
Right.
Right.
So in theory, it says, let's say 50 billion on the bottle, but by the time you get it, I mean, who knows how much?
Who knows
yeah.
what's in it, right?
Yeah.
And that's, is it going to be effective? Maybe.
Yeah.
Is it not? Probably.
Yeah.
So
and that's Ortho then tests for expiration date,
yep.
right?
Yep. So we do stability testing on every single one of our ingredients. Right,
okay.
We know exactly how our vitamin C degrades. We know exactly how our Saccharomyces boulardii, which is in our orthobiotic product, degrades. We know all of that, so we can put expiration dates.
Gotcha.
And what we do at expiration is we hit label claim.
Okay.
So at expiration, we're meeting what it says on the label.
Right. So technically, then, when you initially get it, over and above, it's probably like if it says 20 billion, it's probably more than that.
That's exactly it.
Because it degrades to that point at expiration.
Yep. So, for instance, like orthobiotic, that is formulated right around 76 billion CFU.
Okay.
At when it's manufactured,
yeah.
right? To account for the degradation over time, to make sure it hits 23 billion.
Right.
At expiration.
Interesting.
Right. So it's more bang for your buck, realistically.
Yeah.
Right. So even an expired product is technically you're nailing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. That's good to know. Yeah. You guys do so many different things. I've actually learned a lot about the industry itself just from talking with you and like listening to a lot of the stuff in general. It's interesting stuff, and that's again, being practitioners ourselves, that's what we believe in. We want to know we can trust and have not only the quality behind it and then the knowledge behind it as well to make sure it's being recommended appropriately.
Absolutely, that's the biggest thing, right? The education side of things.
Yeah.
Right. Where's the research? What does the research look like? And I think the other thing that I forgot to mention is we're not a marketing hype company. We never have been. And a lot of doctors are like, why don't you do more marketing and social media and all this stuff? Guess what? Our customer is the doctor. It's not the patient. What do doctors care about? Well, they care about research and efficacy. That's what we stand for.
Sure.
And that's what we'll always stand for. And like you mentioned, the Inflammacore situation, I mean, I think that's a prime example of really, where our core values are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for coming out today, Mike.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you coming here.
Yeah.
And thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.